I grew up knowing how frustrating it is to have Asian and Asian American stories told inaccurately in a dehumanizing manner by a media and entertainment industry that is white male dominated. Experiencing this motivated me to tell these stories more responsibly, to take control of my own narrative, as I didn't want to see others experience what I had to, and it contributed greatly to my development of more empathy for other misrepresented groups of people. I have photographed leaders in a myriad of industries, and I photographed countless DEI conferences. Although many people know how to talk about the importance of DEI, a basic step that still isn't as common as we'd like it to be, and there is still this inaccurately harmful framing of it as charity, not something that brings value. One thing that has been missing is the body language of DEI. I consistently see white men at C-suite levels, even those who talk about the importance of inclusion, not show inclusion in their body language, often making people around them uncomfortable and closing communication channels. Take a look at this study. White male workers respond poorly to women and racial minorities in power and take it out on colleagues. This probably wouldn't be surprising to women and people of color. I see this consistently in body language, especially when photographing. Although from my observations, it's more consistent with white men, other groups of people do this too. In my talks, I give practical and tangible tips on improving your body language. What we should strive for is effective, empathetic executive presence and leadership, while promoting equity and inclusion with body language, combating racism, sexism, and other forms of dehumanization and marginalization. That is all part of being an effective leader. Here's one example that shows good leadership. And despite being bombarded by images of white men with their arms crossed, not showing interest in listening as examples of quote-unquote leadership, active listening is crucial to good leadership. Women of color, because they typically have to experience both racism and sexism, develop crucial skills of empathy. Conversely, and I'll just put it this way, the amount of time that I need to wait for a photo with this much active listening when white men are involved is significantly higher. There are several options to benefit from my expertise. For those organizations comfortable with this idea, I could photograph a collaborative part of a conference or a training, then later in the day or the next day, be a surprise presenter, pointing out the good and bad of body language of the actual people there. Seeing the images captured in sequence to see when the active listening happens is very beneficial to creating self-awareness of body language. I can also present the information using a combination of images that I took and images that I didn't take. Depending on the comfort level of the organization, I can do this training without explicitly talking about race, while still talking about the goal of inclusion and getting the important points across. However, it is my hope that more people will be willing to have more direct, intentional, and explicit conversations about the role of race, gender, and socialization. The focus of how this is done, and specific targeted goals, outcomes, changes depending on whether my audience is primarily POC or white, and changes depending on gender. However, the underlying principle is the necessity for people to allow the best ideas to be shared. That is what inclusion is. If you have a bunch of diverse people in a room, but the overrepresented white men in charge, for example, never make them feel comfortable sharing any ideas, then that will be a toxic culture wasting away talent. Here's a photo from the website of a major consulting and accounting company. Our people are our greatest asset, yet the focus of this image is the white people, and the black person is out of focus and obscured by this contradictory text. How would a person of color react to seeing images like this in company branding? This topic could be discussed as part of a training for people at your organization in charge of marketing and or the leaders who shape company culture, but it's also important for every employee to be aware of the imagery that surrounds them and what messages they send and what messages get internalized in company culture. I share the key to being a responsible storyteller while ensuring that what you're saying with your body language and the images in your or your company's branding matches what you want to be saying. I frequently see a huge disconnect in messaging. For example, a company who talks about the importance of DEI but presents only images like this. These white people aren't even letting this black woman see what's on the phone. How many people signed off on this ad? How is this representative of the kind of culture at this company? This is clearly not inclusion, but there is a black woman, so some would argue it's diversity. And this was on the front page of Facebook. From a personal standpoint, sharing some of my own experiences of what it was like to photograph the icons that helped inspire me to pursue this career adds a motivational resonance with audiences. It's crucial to take control of our own narratives, and doing so inspires others to do the same. To briefly explain the origins of these talks, My clients trust me with creating images for their marketing, online and physical presence, and other uses that represent their brand well. They appreciate my attention to detail in DEI narratives, power dynamics in images, and aligning what they convey with what they hope to convey. But this is very subtle, and the positive effects of these images might not result in a direct and immediate awareness. I made a deliberate decision to be more direct, explaining what I do with capturing these dynamics, and that's what led to these workshops and keynotes. I look forward to working with you to create a more inclusive, equitable, empathetic, and aware culture.